Me, pee pee boo boo.
Grab your peanuts, unless of course you're allergic. Then if that's the case, grab your EpiPen too, because we're taking off and flying full speed into everything you missed in Illumination's Minions: Rise of Gru.
Pee pee boo boo. Boo boo pee pee.
There's some good movie references in Minions: Rise of Gru, like you have a scene with a pilot coming into an airport with a bunch of flight attendants. So then the minions get a bright idea to pretend to be pilots so they can get onto a flight. But then they go and take it a step further and actually pilot the plane. In Catch Me If You Can, Frank Abagnale Jr. pretended to be a pilot to get onto the plane. And he even made it so far as to get into the cockpit. And pilots really do fall asleep in real life in cockpits. Sometimes. True story. Then the minions pay a little bit of respect to the biggest competitor they have, or they're stealing their ideas. Otto is making faces into the back of a semi-truck, just like we saw Mac making faces on his road trip in Pixar's movie, Cars. Then Gru dresses up like a Boy Scout with an old man. A boy dressed up as a Boy Scout with an old man, going on an adventure together. Where did we hear that one before? Then what the heck is this? A little play to Disney's Peter Pan, perhaps? But if you look closely in Despicable Me, Gru had the crocodile seats, and now we see in Rise of Gru, this is actually where he got inspired to have his crocodile seat. We also see Pink Donuts show up yet again. And if you watch everything you missed in Despicable Me, you will see we actually talked about the Pink Donuts over there. Just like in The Bad Guys, again, we're stealing the Mona Lisa. And just like in The Bad Guys, they also give a shout out to Jaws. Clearly, Universal Studios is very proud of that movie. But also, Jaws came out in 1975 and The Rise of Gru takes place in 1976. And we see that fact right here. So it makes sense that we would see Jaws in this movie. The cheese ray gun in the ice cream store shows Gru's personality, just like how he used the freeze ray gun to get a cup of coffee in Despicable Me. There's a slight problem here though. In The Rise of Gru, we find out that Gru is 11 3/4.
But now that I'm 11 3/4, it makes a lot more sense.
And the year is 1976. And Dr. Nefario hasn't invented the freeze ray gun yet until the end of this movie. But Minions is set to take place in 1968, which is 8 years earlier. But we see Kid Gru in Minions, who still looks like he's about the same age of 11 3/4. But it gets worse. In Minions 1968, we see Gru meeting Dr. Nefario at the villain convention, where Dr. Nefario is trying to sell his freeze ray gun. We also see Gru successfully use the freeze gun to steal the crown at the end of Minions, 8 years earlier, as in before this movie. So the first problem is in The Rise of Gru, it looks like Gru doesn't even recognize Dr. Nefario in the first place, and secondly, is that a word? And secondly, if the minions never recognized him until after he shot the freeze ray gun, then why do they know who he is before he even owns the freeze ray gun? So watch this. When Gru mentions he sounds like a wizard going through a midlife crisis,
You look like a wizard going through an end-of-life crisis.
that's an Easter egg. No, it's not another reference to Gandalf. While Knuckles was voiced by Alan Arkin, and back in 1982, Alan was the voice of a character in The Last Unicorn, and that voice was Schmendrick, a wizard. The opening credits of this movie plays on the old James Bond 007 movies. And then they shout out to Mission Impossible, how Gru's mission message exploded after he watched it. This is something that frequently happened in Mission Impossible.
This message will self-destruct in 5 seconds.
If I let you know where I'm going, I won't be on holiday.
When they try to rescue Gru, look at the outfits that they're wearing. They're wearing spiffy little outfits. If you're a fan of Quentin Tarantino, then you've seen Kill Bill. And in Kill Bill, the bride wore the same outfit. But then in The Bank of Evil, we have a really evil Easter egg. Well, it's just an Easter egg, but there's no cool laugh or normal Easter eggs. Actually, just really good Easter eggs. Basically, everything in the bank is, well, evil. Recognize this guy? He's Sergi, the evil circus owner from Secret Life of Pets, which is the same company. But then, even though Illumination likes butt jokes, they stop at the butt. They put a piece of paper over this statue over here to keep him a little bit modest. And if you notice that little detail, then you also notice that his little stink bomb was actually a prototype. And it still has some bugs in it because he might have actually killed that guy over there. Then this biker dude was at VillainCon in Minions. Then this teller right here is actually Agent 25564. Now this is also the water monster from Minions. And the bad guy in the pinstripe suit was also from, you guessed it, Minions. Then of course Stuart has the Scarlet Overwatch lunchbox, which if you didn't know, that was also from Minions. Now if you're a longtime fan of the show here, you've heard me talk about Midnight Cowboy before. More specifically, this scene.
I'm walking here! I'm walking here!
Well, when Gru is going to the super secret meeting, he almost hits somebody in the crosswalk. And if you listen closely, you'll hear what he says is, I'm walking here. Minions: Rise of Gru is a perfect example of why budget doesn't always matter. The movie we just talked about, The Bad Guys, had a $70 million budget, and the Minions: The Rise of Gru had a budget of $80 million. That's only $10 million difference. And you're talking the quality of poop versus the quality of banana. But the movie quality is night and day difference between the two movies. You don't always get what you pay for. You don't always get what you pay for. Little details like having the 6th member of the gang scratched out is what makes this story feel so much more real, like you're actually in a universe, than what we got in The Bad Guys. There's just so many layers in this movie that allow you to marinate in it. So deserving the rewatchability on this movie is very good. The movie ends with Gru's mentor telling him to shoot for the moon.
Shoot for the moon, kid. Shoot for the moon.
And Gru clearly took this to heart, literally. Because in Despicable Me, Gru literally stole the moon. For a brief amount of time. But even as a kid, he was obsessed with space. He even has a rocket in his bedroom that looks quite like the rocket that he used to get to the moon. Also in Minions, we see Kid Gru steal the crown from the queen. And if you look in Gru's underground base, you will see one of the Minions is actually wearing that crown. And remember the pet rat in Minions? Super weird. Well, they still have the pet rat in this movie. Now, some history time. Robbie Knievel is the son of the famous stunt writer Evel Knievel, and he jumped the Grand Canyon in real life back in 1999. And that's who we see over here. In Captain Underpants, we see the school sign was vandalized. Well, if you look at Gru's school sign in this movie, I'm willing to bet that Gru's responsible for that one. We also gotta point out a mistake here. When Gru climbs in the car to watch his invitation, if you look at the little dice hanging from the mirror, they're actually wrong. Like, way wrong. The correct dice will have both opposite sides of the dice equal 7. So if you can see a 4, on the opposite side there's gonna be a 3. Or if you can see a 5, finish it with me, on the other side there's gonna be a 2. So it's impossible to see two sides that equal 7 from one angle. I stole all the fun stuff in the credits to show you because you probably didn't watch the credits, don't lie. In the credits, Gru and the Minions dressed up like Willy Wonka and the Oompa Loompas from 1971's Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. And that right there is a drawing of Gene Simmons from the band Kiss. But in the credits, Gru and the Minions are also dressed up as Kiss band members. Then there's a shout out to the movie Rocky in the credits. And this isn't just a random shout out. The voice of Vengeance is Dolph Lundgren, and he was Ivan Drago, the main bad guy in Rocky 4. But there was also a mid-credit scene. Here you go.
Sorry, we're closed.
Oh! I just wanted to thank you for this. Worked like a charm. Alright, let me cut to the chase here. I need the genius mad scientist.
Did you see the Pizza Planet truck in Pixar's movie Lightyear? Well, check that out and other Easter eggs hidden in that movie. Thank you to all the members for supporting the show, and let us know what movie you want to talk about next, and your comment could be featured in the next video. But until our next video, gents and gentlets, remember most importantly of all, share, smile, they are contagious.
Banana.